Arizona right now. You know, not a month ago, not even 2 weeks ago, but now we got the good stuff. So we'd like to get us started with a song called "This Is the Day." And if you'd like to, please join and rise in the Spirit, and we'll get things started.
This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Sing that. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is a day to be seized, yeah. A day I can feel my spirit set free. Yes, this is the day. It's time to fly higher and high up in the sky. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day all my dreams come true. Can feel the Spirit working its way through. Yes, this is the day. It's time to fly higher and high up in the sky. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it.
All right, good morning. Welcome to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Reverend Clyde Goins. I'm the assistant minister here. I want to welcome you here on this nice fall Sunday morning, and I'm hoping you guys are enjoying the fall weather. So before we get started with all of these wonderful announcements, we have a news update.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olive Philpott.
And I'm Reba Strimple. Welcome to G4G News. In a developing story today, Gourmets for God has returned to the West Valley, and bidding kicks off today. It's the most anticipated fundraiser of the year for the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living, and is reported to be the only fundraiser you can eat.
This year is confirmed the largest Gourmets for God in West Valley history, with 17 events to bid on. Reports are in that there is another date with a chicken, a tailgate party, and even high tea with the kitchen queens.
That's amazing, Olive. I'm excited to see what all of our hosts have to offer this year.
Bidding starts today in Papke Hall. Come by the tables and look at what events are up for grabs. You will need to register to bid to receive an auction booklet of events. You can also see all of the events in the Gourmets for God section of the website at wvcsl.com. Bidding is silent auction style, so make sure to check back each week to ensure your bid is the winner. Let's go to Brenda Bertoli for the Papke Live Traffic Report.
Hi, thanks Olive and Reba. It looks like it's going to be a busy commute getting to Papke Hall with the rush to the bidding tables. For those of you heading from the South Sanctuary, expect delays around the Papke Door interchange. This bottleneck appears to clear up around the food tables, but extreme caution should be taken when crossing to the Gourmet for God area. Your best route is to take the bidding tables, is to take the art wall detour to avoid food table completely. There's another slowdown once you get to the bidding table, so you'll have to pack your patience, get through the line to place your bids, as traffic may be backed up for miles. That's all for the traffic report. Happy bidding!
Thank you, Brenda. Well, folks, looks like your best bet is to be prepared. Check your calendars before placing your bids and be sure to commit to the date when you bid. Don't forget to bid on separate lines for your spouse or your friend to join you. The winning spots will go to the highest individual bids only. There are events for every budget, so there's no excuse not to check it out. All winning bids are financially binding, and bidding ends on October 15th.
How exciting, Olive. I'm looking forward to see how this turns out.
Me too, Reba. Thank you, folks, for joining us on this morning's edition of G4G News. This is Olive Philpott
And Reba Strimple.
signing off.
See you next week. And remember to eat well, be well, and live joyfully.
Thank you guys. So I got to come in a little early, so I got to see what they're setting up out there. So there's a lot of fun dinner plan events that are going to be happening over the next year. So please go into Papke Hall and check it out. And while you're in Papke Hall, I was told that there's a lot of home-baked food today. For some reason, everybody felt like baking, so we've got a lot of great food in there. And then the Kitchen Angels want us to thank Phoenix and Jillian for joining the team. So we have a full team in there supporting us, so thank you guys. After you get filled up and you see what we're bidding on for the Gourmet for Gods, we also have a Meet the Minister today after service. So Reverend Karen will be in her office, and if you're interested in meeting with Reverend Karen, it's just a get-together. She'll sit down and talk with you, answer any questions that you may have about the center, about what we believe, about classes, anything, any questions that you may have. So please, after service, if you can join Reverend Karen in her office, you can go through the bookstore and come right into her office. So it'll be after you have your snacks, and then come right in.
After we get done bidding, and then I'm going to be back in my
After Reverend Karen gets done bidding, she will be in there. All right, and then one last thing is we have the save the date for Armand and Angeline. They're musicians, and they're spiritual musicians, and they'll do a Saturday night show, and we'll get more information about that. And then they're also going to do Sunday morning service. So there's going to be a lot of it'll be a lot of fun. If you've never experienced them before, it's a really great time to see them or experience their service. And then also in that same weekend, that last weekend, we're doing a potluck for that weekend, and we're also dressing up for Halloween, and we're going to have a Halloween costume contest. So that is a lot of stuff going on in the center. So please, if you're not signed up for our newsletter, we have little cards that you can sign up in our newsletter, and you'll have all this information emailed to you every week so you know what's going on. So let's say our vision statement together. I know, John, we have Dining with the Dudes coming up. Every second Saturday of the month. Dining. Sunday. See, everybody knows. I don't even have to announce it anymore. All right, so let's say our vision statement together. We are a loving, joy-filled community honoring the many paths to God as we learn and live the Science of Mind principles. So just sit back, open up your hearts and minds for the Bradford's beautiful centering song and Reverend Karen's wonderful message. Thank you.
So just take a deep breath as we go within.
I will make a quiet place within my heart. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my mind. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my life. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
Be still and know that quiet place is where God is. God lives in, through, and as us right here, right now, expressing as that divine joy and love and peace and calm and abundance and prosperity and all things good. That life of God, that sweet spirit, is so beautiful and lives within us as each one of us here in this room and beyond are one with God. God living in, through, and as us. And that peace and joy and all those good things are just as the clouds floating across the sky and the grass growing in the ground. And every person, place, thing is that divine expression of God. And on this day, on this Sunday morning, I claim and affirm all that goodness of God for each one of us here in this room and those watching online and those who are not with us and all of those who are in service. And I speak a word of blessing for the Bradfords, knowing that their beautiful, harmonious music touches our hearts and souls in ways that we could never imagine. That every word that they sing and every tune that they play is that divine expression of beauty and God. And for Reverend Karen, knowing that her words of God flow through her effortlessly and provide us with that divine message that we are here to listen to. And that everything that we hear is absolutely perfect for us. As God is expressing through her today and every day. And a word of blessing for all other faith traditions, knowing that there are many paths to that one God. And I'm so grateful for this truth. And with gratitude, I release my words into the law, knowing that it is already done, it is so. And together we say, and so it is. My reading today is from Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change by Derek Rydell. Open this up here. The universe is not neutral. It has a plan, a pattern, an evolutionary idea seeking willing places for its ever-expanding expression. Because of this, even in the midst of seeming chaos and destruction, it's conspiring for our freedom and preparing the seedbed of our soul for something more to emerge. But to benefit, we must become what businessman and New Thought author W. Clement Stone was purportedly described as an inverse paranoid, someone who believes that life is plotting for us. This is rarely how we live. We often resist this emerging impulse or urge to emerge because we're afraid of change. To the ego, change is equivalent to danger, even death, because part of it must often be burned down for something new to be born. Denying this evolutionary call, however, causes an inner pressure that must find outlet, sometimes in destructive ways, breaking out as disease, financial collapse, or relationship meltdown, among many unpleasant possibilities. But the meaning of these events isn't that we're being punished or that someone's to blame. These challenges are wake-up calls telling us we've settled for a life too small and must open up our tightly held places to a larger vision. As the Gospel of Thomas says, if you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you. Just as the jack pines require a fire to burn away the glue that keeps the seeds from falling, crisis burn away our limited self-concepts, allowing our deeper nature to unfold. As this chapter intends to show, our suffering carries the seeds of our salvation, our problems contain the answers to our prayers, and our darkness is a womb where our greater light is born. So let's take a moment just to contemplate those thoughts. And so it is.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in a world of your creation. What you'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you only wish to be.
Wow, that was really lovely. Thank you. You did good back up there, Rod, but she's the star today. Honorable mention. Okay, you can have that. Good morning. Welcome to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Karen Rice, and I am the spiritual leader of this community. It's such an honor to be here today. I had such a fabulous week preparing for this message, because what I'm about to say is something that feels really relevant to me, and it's sort of hot and exciting, and the kind of research it required was right up my alley, and so I've really been looking forward to presenting it. We're talking today about creativity and the way that the discovery of life and the way life works becomes sort of our map to change. And so I have a very provocative title for the message. Take a breath. Take a breath. The title of my talk this morning is A Revolutionary New View of Life. Yeah, oh, thank you. Well done, you guys. It's almost like we rehearsed. So, a revolutionary new view of life is not to say that I am here to incite a revolution. Quite the contrary. I am here to talk about what happens when we are able to find a new perspective, a new view, and that can be revolutionary for us. And so, I found this book. Actually, I didn't find this book now, but this is one of the two books I've been using all year long. This is a book by Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching, How to Change Your Life. And this book was first produced in 1982, and so he had passed for about 22 years before they put together these. It's sort of a compilation of things that had not been published, little snippets from talks and different things. So he didn't lay the book out to look like it does with the intention of it being this, but everything in it is pure Holmes. And in this book, Dr. Holmes talks to us about this idea of having a revolutionary new view of life. It's a whole chapter sort of right in the center of the book. Now, I do want to pause here to state that Dr. Holmes lived and was in the early part of the 1900s. He was born in the late 1800s. He began developing this philosophy. His first book was published in 1919. And then he continued to advance his theories and his ideas, which, by the way, are not original. He did not claim to ever do anything original. He just sort of synthesized things that were already out there, and he was quite proud of that. He always said, "Don't call me a prophet. I'm not a saint. Don't worship me." And in fact, he did not have a headstone on his grave for many years because he didn't want us to go worship him. So what I know is that he lived through some very challenging times in terms of the history of our nation. So he would have been a young man in World War I, a little bit older in World War II. He was certainly impacted by the Great Depression, and yet we find very little of that in his writings. I actually have a minister friend who once said to me, "I believe there are lost writings from the war years, and that one day we're going to discover what he had to say about all of that." And I believed that for a while, but then I began to realize what I know about Dr. Holmes is that he wasn't about trying to address the problems as much as he was saying there are the effects that we live in. This physical world is the realm of effect, but what we look at are the causes, and how we can have a new first cause and plant new seeds of possibility to make changes in our own experience of living. So this was a really fun opportunity for me to just look at that one chapter, A Revolutionary New View of Life, where Dr. Holmes talked about, he sort of felt to me like he was giving us instruction on choosing a sensible view of the world we live in, no matter what era that we live in. That this advice is universal, that these are our spiritual truths that we can apply and use in many ways. So he addresses things like the importance, always you hear this in his work, the importance of spiritual experience. Specifically meaning that it's important for us to create space in our life to nurture a relationship with God, to have a divine sense of communion with the creator of all of life. He talked about the practical application for the spiritual teachings that we can apply and use in our own lives, in our own predicaments, and in the beautiful way we desire to experience a grander expression of beauty and love and all of those practical things. He spoke at a time where it was not trendy or common. He spoke about the merging of science and spirituality. I often get tickled when I think of how far we've come in our ability to language the merging of these two schools of thought. And most of all, Dr. Holmes emphasized that the end of fear comes to us when we are willing to have a new revolutionary view of life. Not a revolution, but a new view. These are some words from that chapter, and this is where I got the quote from that inspired me, and I have been so excited all week to share this with you. We will be free from fear when the secret place of the Most High is revealed in the inner sanctuary of our own hearts. Then the eternal God will sit enthroned in our own minds. Enthroned, God will sit enthroned in our own mind, in the consciousness of our own thoughts, so that we're walking around with this divine light illuminating everything else that's going on. That changes our vision. It changes our understanding of spiritual ideas when we let God get off of that throne, that old guy sitting up on a throne somewhere far away, as if he's going to, he's protecting the pearly gates or something. I don't know if he doesn't let people in or he won't let them out. I don't know which would be worse. But anyhow, it's time to let those old, antiquated ideas fade away so that we can expand I love that part of the reading. It can give us a more expansive, we can grow in our understanding of these truths, and we should be growing all the time. Every day is a new opportunity to stretch a little more. So these are the ideas that I want to address this morning, that we can let that old idea of a God that sits on a throne, we can let that fall. And now we can look at the way we can summon in our own awareness that idea that there's this sacred sanctuary in our own hearts. This secret place of the Most High is already within us, and we can tap into it. And when we can feel it in us and we realize that it's present in everybody, in all of life, then it becomes easier to see it, and that becomes a revolutionary sort of a way of viewing all of life. Renews it for us. One of the definitions I found for revolutionary said that it's anything radically new or innovated. Revolutionary is something that is beyond the normal established procedures, above and beyond the way things have always been done. So when we talk about the revelation, it's like a revelation of truth within us. We awaken something within us to a higher degree of being able to sense it and see it and recognize it, and we encounter it in a loftier way, in a godly way. It's the revealing of truth. I like to say that. And so we're talking about revelation, not as a scary book in the Bible with a horsemen and the apocalypse and all that scary stuff, 144,000. It's not that. It's a revealing. It's a personal revelation to us as Spirit reveals it to us, but Spirit reveals it to us only when we are ready. So we can maneuver through our day without having to think everything through, and yet always, right at the exact space we are, is all the wisdom, is all the guidance, is all the truth that we would ever need. And so we are constantly invited to sort of ready ourselves to receive these great truths. I also found another definition of revolutionary that said it's anything that involves or causes a complete or a dramatic change. Well, we can say we've been through some dramatic changes in so many ways, and we've done that together, which I think it's really unifying too. I remember saying to my husband, it's like when we hit lockdown, and for, it stuns you for a little while, like, really? Really? We're just locked. We're here. We're stuck here. The whole world is stopping. It was such a strange experience to have that. And it was a dramatic change that we all went through. And I remember saying to him, like, well, that's an equalizer right there. We're all having the very same experience now, but we get to interpret it in an individualized way. So between those two definitions, these ideas of what's revolutionary, what it means to be revolutionary in the way we view things and life, what I see is that these are perfect ideas, so relevant for the changes that are ongoing in the world always, but particularly we are concerned about the times that we are living in. How do we use this teaching to help us get through every day? And when we open ourselves to that kind of guidance, what we're doing is that is radical. That is revolutionary, because we're opening ourselves to extreme and sacred seeing and being. Is good news. It reminds me that whatever's going on in the current events around the globe, that there's more to the story, more than any newscaster or any slant, any way of looking at any situation, that there's always more going on. And certainly we should know that, but we forget. And when we lean into fear, then we don't think in that more rational and certainly spiritual way. It's a little trickier to align ourselves to our faith when we're in fear. But a revolutionary view, I was thinking that a revolution is a war. It could be a battle, and we certainly do battle a lot of scary thoughts in our own lives. We have ongoing challenges in all our relationships and our families, and we're always looking for ways to be together with more love and more compassion and to be kind to each other. So a revolution can be a battle, the way we go to war with the things that we are against. But in the word revolution, we also find the word revolve, which is about turning, which is about a circular movement. So I can turn, I can revolve and face a new direction at any time that I choose to. And then what I realize is this is the best part about being a minister, is that it really is very important for ministers to stay open to that revolutionary new view, and not only to stay open to it, but to anticipate that God will bring something before me that will help me make more sense out of whatever something that's going on in the world or in our community or in my own personal life. So we turn our attention then to new possibilities. And those possibilities, I love that book. I haven't heard of that book, and I don't know that author. And I do have books by that title in my library, but I didn't know that one. But I like that idea that the emergence, that those possibilities, what that means for us is that there's something that's just hovering right now, right here, everywhere around the planet. There is goodness waiting to burst forth, and sometimes it looks messy before, that's what we say. Birth is always messy, right? It is. If you haven't done it, it is. Old midwife. But in the most beautiful way, sort of reminds me of death and hospice work. It's very, very similar. So it's helpful to know and this is kind of the crux of what I wanted to say today, it's helpful to know that there have always been revolutionary thinkers on the planet that have been willing to not buy into despair and it's the end of the world and life is over, life as we know it is over. There have always been individuals who have been willing to take a stand. Throughout history, there have been people that have held the space of possibility for the change that will follow, whether or not they're alive to see it actually accomplished in their lifetime. There's just, it's lovely to know there are just people that are certain, that have faith in that. I like the idea of always having hope or seeing possibilities or being open to the experience of new possibilities. Even the founding fathers are said to have been religiously creative. I like that because, if you think about the 1700s, and we're talking about the founding fathers of this country, that they were typically people that spiritually did not think like with the average thinkers. They were willing to think out of the box. They were willing to be creative in terms of stuff that had never been questioned before, and they wrote those things into the Constitution of our country. And so I love that idea that they were religiously creative. And by the way, it wasn't like everybody that signed the documents agreed with each other on all this stuff. They did not. But the thing about people that are considered to be the cultural creatives of any generation are the people who are not afraid of a little conflict. And we're grateful for those people who are willing to do that, because most people don't want anything to do with conflict. You see something going on down there on the corner. Of course, you want to check it out. You want to know what it is, especially if it's your neighborhood. But then you don't want to get too close. You want to stay safe, or you want to take a different road to avoid it. Arnold Toynbee is a well-respected historian. He's no longer living, but he lived about the same time as Holmes and a bunch of other great thinkers. And he said this: when society gets itself in trouble, it's always a creative minority that comes up with a new way of life, that gives us a new approach to how we can solve the issue, whatever the issues may be. And by the way, Jesus was a bit of a rebel. There is no question about that. And his message was revolutionary. Some people consider Jesus to be a non-conforming Jew. Isn't that funny? That makes me laugh. But I think it's an apt description. Another definition of Jesus that I like very much is that he was a revolutionary mystic. To be a revolutionary mystic means that he had a very keen understanding of oneness, and this is why he could say things like, "The Father and I are one." One. He understood oneness. He understood unity and wholeness, and his message was always around pulling people together and teaching people about forgiveness and kindness and love and compassion. But he was a rebel. I have this great book that I've had for a few years now by Adyashanti. Adyashanti is not a Christian. He is a Zen Buddhist. However, he wrote a book entitled Resurrecting Jesus. And I love that approach because he's talking throughout the book about the Christ consciousness, which is what we stand on in this teaching. We are born from the teachings of Jesus, but the Christ consciousness is the consciousness that we are always focusing on, creating an atmosphere of thought in our own mind that would be similar to that as the idea of the Christ. And so Adyashanti, who was not a Christian, wrote some interesting things. And he said in that book, Resurrecting Jesus, in Christian theology, Jesus is given as both man and God. We understand that. Most of us are from the West, and we understand that depiction of Jesus as both God and man. But in the vast majority of Christian religions, there's very little humanity that's been left in Jesus because they haven't focused on the humanness. And that's where the relatable part of the message is for us. It's that in this way that Jesus is the elder brother, then we have this gorgeous example of a visionary, of a new view, of a revolutionary new view from a rather scandalous start. You know, when he didn't make Christianity, that happened later, but he brought these new ideas that were later formed into a faith. So Adyashanti has a very similar take on the purpose of religion as we do, and the way that it's been translated through for metaphysicians and New Thought ministers for lengthy years. The whole point of religion is to awaken the individual to some kind of inner knowing, that finding, that being still, in finding that sanctuary in your own heart, the inner wisdom that's given to all of us. And in that way, we begin to have a new understanding that when we say God is right here, right now, that's a universal, that there cannot be any place where spirit and that infinite intelligence, there can be no way that it could be missing or even lacking. The only thing we lack is our own attentiveness to that truth, and especially in times where we're called to use it. See, Jesus, here's the thing. Jesus understood there were spiritual laws, and he knew how to use them. So every element of nature has some spark of light in it. Most faiths have a teaching that says the same thing. Every element of life has some kind of divine spark about it. Even the rocks and the stones and the mountains, we know that all of it is telling this transcendent story, this bigger story of this universal truth. So Adyashanti goes on to say, the whole Jesus story is the map of a journey that happens within us. It's a map. All of the parables tell this great story, and it's almost like the hero's journey. Who does the hero's journey? What's that guy's name? Campbell, thank you. Oh, good save. Thank you. I hate it when I do something I wasn't going to do and then I don't know it. Oh, but you guys always bail me out. So Joseph Campbell, interesting because I'm about to talk about Jung, and Campbell was a student of Carl Jung's. So we're having that journey in our own experience, and that's sort of the whole point to depth psychology. Adyashanti goes on to say, it's an invitation for us to live out the radiance that's revealed when we have the courage to step beyond the things that separate us. We have to be invited to have the courage to step beyond or to revolve in a different direction and walk away from the things that divide us, with an insistence that there are so many more ways that we are unified in this understanding of life, of God, of spirit, everywhere present all the time. And then he goes on to say, churches and synagogues and temples of all religions are entrusted with this, to interpret the old stories and the teachings so that they can open us to the transcendent nature of life. That's the perception of connectedness, of union, of wholeness. And a beautiful element of this very teaching, we have a very practical spirituality in New Thought, and it's unified in all the other religions that fall under the category of New Thought. The methods and the applications are unique in our teaching because we have a very distinct way of teaching affirmative prayer. We'll be doing that in the foundation class this week. But these teachings are based on universal teachings, without any religious dogma, which I think is tricky. I think it's tricky to do that. And it's not to say we don't bump into our own dogma every now and then, but we do our best to remain open at the top, to be really just as open-minded, and to understand we are individualizing the journey to meet our own needs. So the choices I make will be different than the choices you may make, and your next door neighbor makes, and all of that put together. So we do understand that the Christ consciousness is talking about a fully evolved, an ability to embody this great grand spiritual truth in such a way that our vision shifts and we are able to see the patterns, the eternal patterns of truth that are everywhere present. The oneness, the idea of oneness reminds us that we are all brothers and sisters on this planet, that humanity is we are all related to each other. Nobody is alone. That we are all created in the image and the likeness of that which created us, meaning we are creative beings, and we are always co-creating the conditions in our own life. When we are conscious of that, we can make good decisions, and we do. We also realize that we are all the beloved of the Creator. Each and every one of us is the beloved of God. There's a line in the Course in Miracles that says, all are called, but few choose to listen. So we listen. We encourage meditation and stillness and a practice of being open at the top so that we can also remember to look for those patterns in that very same way. I read this amazing article this week, thanks to Reverend Clyde, gave me some. I don't understand where you have to tell me later how you stumbled on this parabola. It's a magazine that I subscribed to for at least a decade, and I have every issue because they're glorious. They're so heavenly. But boy, are they heady. They're very intellectual. So I read this article, and they're long articles. I read this fabulous article that took the lives of Carl Jung, who is this very well-respected in the world of psychology and psychiatry. Carl Jung is the person that brought us depth psychology and mingled spirituality in that school of human development. And Arnold I forgot his name. Let me look at my notes. Arnold Toynbee. I don't know why I try and put an R in it. Arnold Toynbee is one of the most respected historians that has looked at multiple civilizations and looked at all of history to come up with some pretty fabulous theories, and I quoted him earlier. And added to that is Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, whom you may know is one of my favorite sources of inspiration. I can never get enough Teilhard. And this article talked about the way these three key players lived very different lives and were very devoted to their work. Remember that Teilhard was a French Jesuit priest who was a geologist and a paleontologist and a stretcher bearer in World War I. Carl Jung, this well-respected psychologist. From Carl Jung, we get the idea of synchronicity. We get the idea of the collective unconscious, which was a real gift to metaphysicians and teachers of this movement, because the metaphysicians used the term race consciousness, but Carl Jung cleaned it up by calling it the collective unconscious, just those unconscious thoughts that we sort of seem to be in agreement with all the time. And then, of course, we get the history from Toynbee. The article now puts these three important people together as cultural creatives with that sort of idea that they had a lot in common because they lived in the same time period. And by the way, it is exactly the same time period as Dr. Ernest Holmes. None of them were friends that we know of. They weren't, and maybe they respected each other, maybe they didn't even know each other, it wouldn't matter. But what we know is each of them, even though they were in very different fields, were students of human behavior, particularly in challenging times. So they had theories. Each of them had their own theories about how people behave when they're going through the most tragic and challenging situations that could happen. And they all lived through the world wars and the Depression and the 60s. Well, their lives were waning by then, but they had these great observations. And here's the collective idea that the article purports of their theme. They each observed that there are always individuals who turn away from rigid dogma in order to discover and follow a greater energy. I love that they used the word energy, because what they're talking about is the higher self. They're talking about the inner wisdom. They're talking about the God self, but they each would word it in a slightly different way. They were resolved that they would discover and follow a greater energy, and that energy is the divine guidance. That energy is the very goodness that holds the entire universe together and allows us to see that there's a wisdom that governs life, that is beyond, it is greater than we are, and we can count on it. Toynbee used the term, he did not use the term tipping point, but he spoke about the 10%. He believed there were always at least 10% of any population that would be considered the visionaries, or the people that simply refuse to lose hope. The 10% of the population that did not buy into the idea of any eschatology, any idea of the end times, but were hopeful for what would be coming afterwards. And so in the article, it concludes by saying, if a few people can come to realize that the outer problems of society are also at work inside of us, if you see something that really triggers something outside of you, what is it in here that causes me to notice it or to feel disturbed by it? So if a few people can recognize that those things going on in the world, we can relate to them by the discord in our own experience, then we are called to work on ourselves to establish a better balance in the way we live our lives. And if I take time to establish a better balance in my life, even if it's just for a tiny moment in the morning, and if you took a tiny moment in the morning to take time to find a better sense of balance in your life, we are now bringing more balance to the consciousness of humanity. This is not a small thing. Jung called it individuation. It was about inner growth, our inner growth. That's what I love about this teaching, is the personal growth aspect. Teilhard called it an experience of awakening with the pneumenosa, oneness with God. Holmes called it a mystical union or communing with the divine. All of these are visionary leaders who could see those eternal patterns, that really were willing to recognize the presence of something greater than they were, something that I call God. And then they courted that presence. And so do we. This is the life we talk about every Sunday. We too have this gorgeous opportunity to take time to feel and nurture a personal relationship with God. Now, I will say, some people are called to be change makers in this world. You know, some people are called to be activists. Some people are willing to roll up their sleeves and get their hands involved and do the hard work. There are people who are union leaders. There are people who, in this community, there are people who sit on the board of their HOA. God bless you, you must need extra grace. Right? So there are people who are called to do those things, to do the work. There are people who are destined to be politicians, and we praise you. We need improvement in all of that. But there are others of us who are not called in that way. See, you know who you are. You don't get to be a minister because you just want to be a minister. Right? If you have a call to ministry, then something carries you through, right, Sue? It's like it's something there, so though you hit every wall you ever thought you would have. If you're going to do this, you got to go through all the work, the hard work, and thankfully, not all of us are called to that. I think others who are not the activists and the doers, I think others of us are called to be placeholders. That's the way I see it. That we are willing to see what's possible and to do our work, our spiritual work, to see possibilities that could emerge, even though we don't know any answers. We know that there's a divine solution to every problem. And so some of us are placeholders to nurture that goodness that's trying to emerge on this planet even now, to remain hopeful and positive, to practice love and compassion, and to deepen our faith and our spiritual practice. And we then are revolutionaries in the way that we are also willing to turn away from despair, to pull ourselves up when we get discouraged, or to make a phone call and get somebody to pray for us or with us. We are the ones who will reject the idea of hopelessness. We are the ones who know that life is on our side, and when we forget, we come back on a Sunday morning and we get boosted up again so that we can walk out with a renewed faith, trusting that it will be revealed to us in God's timing, not ours. Thy will be done, not my will. Thy will, God's will, the greater idea in the mind of all creation. And so I wanted to end this morning with that very same quote I read at the top from Dr. Holmes. We are free from fear when the secret place of the Most High is revealed to us in the inner sanctuary of our own hearts. And that indeed is what I wanted to say today. Let's take a nice, deep, cleansing breath. So many words. And tiny moments of connecting in that personal way. That aha moment where we know there's a gem here today that was just for me. So be willing to grab your gem and to hold it close to your heart. What truths of yours have been fed this day? What possibilities are emerging in your own life? And together we take the sacredness of this idea and we sense the presence of God right here, right where we are, wherever that may be. We feel the love of God coursing in our personal being, in the physicalness of our body. We feel that infinite intelligence as the presence of all wisdom. We understand that there is this miraculous way that our bodies function on this planet, so that when we encounter anything that feels less than vibrant and health-wise whole, we know that there is something else, that pure, gorgeous perfection and health and vibrancy in body, the vitality, the body itself that desires expression. And therefore, we can be confident that there is a healing going on, even as the words of this prayer are spoken. So we open ourselves to be vessels to receive. We become ready and open, so that revolutionary vision might be gifted to us, that it comes to us through the grace of God, that it awakens that quickening within us, awakens that bigger truth, that we are connected intimately to each other. We cannot be separate, and we are connected most intimately to the divine. So I feel the presence of Spirit in this room, and I know that it hovers wherever you may be listening from, that the fullness of that compassion, that gift of love, that certainty of the way spiritual principles work, all of it is the very divine illumination that is stirred inside of us, that renews our vision, that allows us to revolve and turn away from despair and away from fear, so that we might stand courageously and know that we stand courageously because we know who it is that holds us. So we feel that love of God within us this day. We feel that way in which we can set aside any ideas of judgment or levels of growth or understanding, but that there is this one beautiful platform of truth, this eternal progression of wisdom that is happening in our very own consciousness right now. And so we open ourselves, we breathe in these truths, we recognize the shift in our bodies, we accept the healing. We allow ourselves to feel the preciousness of all the relationships in our love, in our families, in our lives, even in our pets. And so, standing with this new perspective, boldly on this new day, we are equipped to move through this week, for God has already given all that is needed, and we are choosing the seeds that we plant, the choices we make, the way that we show up to be a visionary in our very own lives. So I say thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, life, for all of these refreshed ideas and renewed invigorations. For this is how we can indeed not only move through our days, but be a space for good on this planet. And with a very grateful heart, I simply release these words into the law, knowing they are already done, and together we say, and so it is. Amen.
Grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. Everywhere I look and every face I see is love reflected, shining
right. Thank you, Bradford. So I just real quick, so when Reverend Karen was talking about all this talk today, it made me think of the Bradfords. So we had a professional development last weekend with the Bradfords. We get together with them every so often to talk about the community and creativity for their service. And so about 4 or 5 years ago, we were looking for a full-time music director, music leaders, and we had all these guest speakers coming in, and we were Reverend Karen and I were trying to figure out who can we ask, and they were here all along. So we asked them, and so they stepped into that role, and not only did they bring this, what I'm speaking of is abundance, you guys. So not only did they bring their beautiful voices, their beautiful message through their music, but they have transformed our center. This is all of them, all of their work that they've done. So I just want to acknowledge you guys. So that is truly, and what we're talking about is the abundance, and that is truly an expression of abundance. So now is the time to celebrate the abundance of our lives, the abundance of our community. And so I want to remind everybody that we don't pass around offering plates. We have drop-off boxes on the way to Papke Hall, where we have great food, and in the back of the room, and then also in the bookstore. So we appreciate all pledges, donations, and tithes. So thank you for that. And if you would like prayer after service, we have called to prayer right after service, right up here. So just come up, and one of the practitioners will be available for prayer. So let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Please rise for our last song. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Sing that with me. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. I ain't thinking about my problems. I'm living now. I'm living now. And I ain't gonna worry about the future. I'm living now. I'm living now. So put your hands up if you feel like having a good time. Put your hands up if you're sharing love with all. Raise your cup if you're hopeful for tomorrow. Put your hands up if you're ready to have some fun. And sing it. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. One more time. Oh, it feels so good to be alive.
Yes, it does. All right, so if you can repeat the closing affirmation with me. I am ready to reveal the truth within me. And experience life in a new way. And so it is.